everyone, welcome back to Sweet Yellow House. I hope y'all are doing well. Today we have 5 projects and I am excited to get started. So let's go ahead and start off with project 1. I am calling little square frame. This is a little frame that I was given from a friend and I love the shape of it. And then I grabbed this 5x5 canvas, but for some reason it was just like a little smidge too big. So I went to my little mini table saw and just kind of shaved off the ends there just so that it would fit. And then I sanded down those rough spots and then cleaned it off. I grabbed the paint inlay Portofino from IOD, and this was in the summer release, I believe. And so I'm just going to cut off a section here big enough to cover my little canvas. So I'm going to use the Iron Orchid Design Victoria, but I already have this made and it's kind of in my stash of all my excess molds that I've created over time. And I'm just going to grab that and move it to the side. I'm going to grab vintage linen in DIY paint, give that a really good stir, and I'm going to start to paint my frame front and back. I do a couple of coats with this color, just making sure that I have full coverage on that frame, and I'm drying with my embossing gun in between coats. I'm also going to put a layer on that canvas and prepping that to put my inlay on. So here I'm putting that next coat on, and I'm going to wet my inlay and then put that down onto the canvas. I'm just going to pat that down with a damp paper towel and give it another spritz, and then I'm going to dry that as well with my embossing gun. I'm going to grab Heraldry, I think that's called. This is a new mold. I think it was also their summer release from IOD. I'm going to grab some DOS clay and I'm going to then mold the little kind of shield that's there, just using a transfer stick. I use that to smooth out the clay. I'm gonna grab that little pea that I grabbed out of my stash, and I'm just gonna press that into that wet clay to make the indentation of that pea. So once that is all set up, I'm gonna wet that inlay just a little bit and then begin to remove that. If you have some resistance, go ahead and give it a little bit more time for that water to work and then remove it then. I'm going to use the embossing gun to dry any of that excess water, and now I'm going to grab my liquid patina from DIY, and I'm going to put a coat over that inlay, but I'm making sure that my brush is fully loaded and that it's not dragging at all, and with the light hand I'm just going across that inlay. I then grab a baby wipe and I'm going to distress that frame a little bit, and then I go back to that vintage linen and I'm going to do a coat over that shield with the letter P indentation in there. Grabbing my Type Bond, I'm going to use that to then glue that little clay piece to the canvas with the inlay on it. Once I have that all done, I'm grabbing my golden ticket liquid patina and I'm going to go over that letter P and then also the border of the inside of that frame, and I'm going to set that aside to dry. Then I grab my Type Bond and I'm going to go into the indentation of where that letter P is going to sit and add some glue and then add that letter in there. I'm going to let that set up and dry, making sure that it fits well and everything looks lined up still. And once everything is dry and lined up and all good, I grab my DIY dark wax and I'm going to go over that frame, wiping it back with a baby wipe and applying it and wiping it back. Just because I don't want it sitting on there too long, I don't have any clear wax kind of buffering that. And then I'm going to go over and do the same thing to that canvas piece. I go back over with the golden ticket, but I'm really not too happy with the shine with that. So I grab my good old standby, the gilded wax in Empire Gold, and just using my finger, I kind of brighten up that golden area. I'm going to use this framing tool and go ahead and secure that into it, and that's how it came out. I made this for my gallery wall. If you want to see how that turned out, go over to my other channel inside Sweet Yellow House, and there's a lot of things that I've been making that I have added to the wall, and you can check everything out there. The next thing is some plain wood candlesticks. I got these from the Goodwill, and they are just a plain non-treated candlestick. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab some wood tin in walnut, and this is from Folk Art Home Decor, and I'm just going to give that a good shake, and then using a brush just go over all of those, and I apply that tint, and then I just wipe it back with a paper towel. It didn't come out great, but the point is that I just want to give it a dark base. So I grabbed cake batter, and this is from DIY. I believe I add a little water there because it is a little bit kind of thick. So I'm gonna apply that then to all of the candlesticks, making sure that I have full coverage. I think it took me a good 2 or 3 coats just to make sure that I had covered all of that well, and then I dried each coat with my embossing gun. Then I grab a wet paper towel, and I'm just going to go ahead and distress these, and that's the reason why I wanted to tint those a dark color, because I didn't want to distress it back to that light wood. Then I'm going to grab Saint Germain and grab a couple of the images from there, smaller ones to fit on these candlesticks, and begin to apply those on there. So once I have that done, I grab my Jolie finishing wax in clear, and I'm just going to go ahead and apply a coat to these 4 candlesticks, just making sure that those transfers are covered over really well so they stay protected. I wipe back any excess with those, and then I grab the Bare antiquing wax. I think it's called antiquing wax, or it's called dark antique. So I grabbed that, and just with a smaller brush, I'm just then applying that to the candlesticks as well, and then wiping back any excess. Then I have these little candle inserts that I got at the Goodwill, and I'm just going to use some hot glue and insert those into the candlesticks. These can be used for little bases, actually, if you wanted to, or you could put votives in there as well. They're very versatile, really cute addition to any tablescape, I think. So the next project is called Wood Riser, and this is a riser that I got from Home Goods several years ago. Very basic, plain. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the feet on this. I don't really like them. They're not kind of the look I'm going for. They're really kind of rustic, modern type, and I'm not into that. So I'm going to smooth out those holes just by sanding them, and then go ahead and sand all over this wood round, wiping any of that dust back. And then I'm going to grab DIY cottage color crockery, and give that a good stir. It separates out if you have it sitting for any time, so you want to stir it really well. And then I began to apply that onto the wood round, just making sure that I have full coverage. I honestly at this point didn't know where I was going with this, so but I used crockery because I felt like it was a really good color. So I have this candlestick that is severely crooked, so I'm going to have my husband take it out and cut it into sections that I want, and I'm going to grab the top section where you put the candle in and use that as the riser for that top. I grab Laurel IOD mold, and I'm going to use this to make some pieces that I want to decorate the edge of that round. I'm also going to use the rosette mold and use just one little image from there, and I'm showing you here which ones and what the pattern is and how I'm going to put that together. So there you can see the pattern that I'm going for, and then I just take a Sharpie and kind of mark out where I'm going to start, and I'm going to start with those little medallions there and glue those on first using my Titebond, just using my finger to spread the glue out, and then some painter's tape just to hold those pieces in place. I'm sorry if you could hear a bunch of little tapping and stuff. It's 103 here today, and so the house is kind of closed up and everybody's prancing around here, and my dog's prancing back and forth in front of the door because he wants to come in. So I'm just using a sanding block and this little tool to kind of remove any of this old wax and stuff like that. I'm giving it a good sand to kind of clean it up some, and then I'm going to go in with my dark and decrepit liquid patina and use that to give this kind of a sharper look, to clean it up and make it look a little less beat up. So I let that sit out overnight, I believe, and now I'm removing the tape on that, and I'm going to now screw in that bottom. I just made a hole in that round, and I'm just going to go in through where the candle usually sits and put a screw through there, and then screw that into that top. This worked out perfectly, and it just came together really well. So I decided that I wanted to change the color of that, so I grabbed the Dixie Belle Magnolia color, and I'm just going to go ahead and add some salt wash to that. I'm doing pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy. I added a lot to that. I wanted a lot of texture, so I just began to apply that over that crockery color. You can see here it's pretty close, but it's a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to go back in and remove that bottom just so that I can paint through there and not have to worry about trying to work around that bottom. It was easy enough, one screw and it's done. So I dried that with the embossing gun. I reapplied the bottom to that, and now I'm going to grab the Jolie finishing wax and clear and just give that a coat all around. Then I go back to my bare antiquing dark antique wax, and I'm going to apply that over that clear wax and then wipe that back with a paper towel, making sure that I get all that detail on the sides and on the top. It's grabbing all of that texture from the salt wash, and that's how that came out. I am really happy with this. It looks totally different from what it started out as. I think that those molds around the sides and with that base, and I was really happy that I was able to kind of take apart that really crooked candle holder and reuse it for something else. Framed yellow flowers. So I grabbed this a long time ago, and I've always loved the shape of the frame, but I've just kind of never have done anything with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is take it all apart like I always do, unscrew everything, take the backing off, and that just kind of lets me start from scratch and also lets me know what I'm working with. So I'm going to remove the picture there, set that aside, and I'm also going to remove the glass as well. I'm going to remove any paper that's stuck to the back, and then I'm going to give it a really good wipe down. I have this mold, and this is from Redesign by Prima or with Prima, Imperial Intimacy, and this is part of the Kasha line. So using the casting resin and tan, I am going to begin casting some molds from this. I had to do it a couple of different times because I wanted four of those smaller pieces. So I stir that up and pour that into there. I pour the excess into that top one, but as I'm releasing that, I'm just kind of shaping that to the oval of the frame. I am then going to apply that Loctite super glue, and using that, I'm going to apply that mold to the frame with that, and I stuck myself to it with the gloves, but I was able to pull it away. So I'm going to grab a what is that called? A syringe with the needle and my modeling paste, and I'm gonna fill that syringe with this modeling paste, and I'm sure people have seen me do this before, and I'm gonna use that to kind of fill in any gaps that I have there between the frame and those resin pieces. So just using a brush, I'm smoothing that out. Once I get that where I want it and everything's kind of dried, I grabbed my DIY weathered wood, and I'm going to do a couple of coats over everything, the frame, the molds, or the resin pieces, making sure that I have full coverage, and drying that again with my embossing gun. I'm going to turn it over and do the back part of just that frame. I don't like to sometimes leave that because I just feel like you might be able to see it in some cases. So after that's all dry and done, I grab my DIY Dark and Decrepit, and I'm going to do a coat of that over that weathered wood. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then I'm going to grab my gloss Mod Podge, and I'm going to go back to that picture that was in there and grab a fan brush and just begin to do a coat over so that it looks like oil painting. I put that aside to dry, and then I'm going to go back to that frame and get my Folk Art antiquing wax, and I'm going to go over the frame with that I'm trying to give this some variation in the brown so it looks more like wood. So I wiped that back, and now I'm going to go back to the DIY, this time in the dark or the black wax, and do that just where those resin pieces are, and then wipe that back. So now I'm going to my liquid leaf, and I'm going to use a small brush and just highlight those beautiful resin pieces, and then set that aside to dry. Once that's all dry, I'm going to go ahead and start putting that all back together, but I am not putting the glass back in there. I'm just using that piece. I'm attaching the hanger on the back of that, and that's it. It's all set. I think that it looks really pretty. The frame is kind of gotten a facelift, and it has more detail to it, and that which was just a print now looks like a painting, and it came together, and I really like this. I also have this hanging on my wall for my gallery wall, and again, if you want to see that, that's on my other channel. So large vintage frame is our last project today. I grabbed this frame so long ago, and I've just never could decide what I'm going to do with it. So I grabbed this project board from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to cut off the sides and then just measure out the inner part of that, and then cut that board down to size. All right, I have this redesigned with Prima decoupage fiber paper, Botanical Bliss, and I'm using this on my circular foam board that I cut out. I'm using the liquid patina to put that down, and I am not happy. I like the picture itself. I don't like the texture of that. And I didn't do a good job with this at all. I was just kind of like stumped. I couldn't get the creases or anything out of it. So if anybody has any tips, or maybe I should have used something else to put that down, let me know. So once I have that all down and dried, I cut the excess around with just a pair of scissors, and I leave that to dry. Then I go over and grab the Mod Podge and gloss, and I'm going over that to get it to kind of like conform. So I put that aside to dry, grabbed the liquid leaf, and just using a popsicle stick, just kind of going over a lot of those really bad nicks and stuff. And I let that dry. It dries really fast, and I'm gonna grab my DIY dark wax and go over those highlighted areas because they were really bright, and then just buff that out. So here's how that turned out. It looks really good from far away, but if you get close to it, you could see the kind of creases in that paper. And so I could really use some tips with this. I love, like I said, the color of it, or the picture of it. I just don't think that it came out as well as I would have hoped. So anyhow, thanks for watching and spending your time with me. I really do appreciate it. I hope you liked some of my projects today. Don't forget to go over to my website and check out that. I have a lot of my projects for sale. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you soon.